Carried. Roll call, please.
Make sure we're recording, looks like we are. Okay, Delvo.
Here.
Schuler.
Here.
Scannell.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Hinkfist.
Here.
Parma.
Excuse. Yep. Very good. Agenda, approval agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
It was Randy first.
And then
Alder
Scannell.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Minutes from April 12th.
So moved.
Alderman Scandal.
Second.
And Debbie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Regular business. Consideration of possible action to approve amendment to extend the development agreement with Give a Damn Ventures for the property located at 320 South Webster Avenue, parcel 14-750, from May 31st, 2022 to July 31st, 2022.
Yep, so we had 320 South Webster Ave, which is Give a Damn Ventures. She started this development back in 2020 when the pandemic started, and she ran into a couple of hiccups with the cost of construction. Then, so we gave her an extension to the end of this month. Unfortunately, in December, her builder, Bert Reinisch, passed away. So the business has now been taken over by his son and daughter, and they're just asking for that to be extended to July 31st so that they can complete that build.
I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah, and based on the pictures you supplied.
Yes.
it looks
Yeah,
like
they're making great
real
progress.
And sounds like a very tragic.
I give a damn, I approve.
All right.
I will second
We're gonna have an
that
actual
motion.
Alderman.
Again, an actual in-person.
There's a lot of energy here now.
I did.
Watch out.
The motion and a second in regard to the motion, is there any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried, thank you. Number 2, consideration with possible action to approve a 9-month planning option for the property located at 1162 Day Street, parcel 7-62, and 1164 Day Street, parcel 7-63 to NeighborWorks, Green Bay, for development of single-family owner-occupied house on each parcel.
Yep.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Okay, both of these parcels were purchased in 2013 using CDBG funds. That NeighborWorks is working with their Bridges construction program again with the student builds. And with this one, they're actually wanting both of these parcels for the 23-24 build season. However, FEMA is in the process of changing their flood maps. Therefore, they would like to go into a 9-month planning option with the intent that these 2 parcels would come out of that floodplain, and then they could proceed with the build for the 23-24 school year. Staff reviewed everything, and we don't see any problem with them being able to hold that for 9 months.
Questions, comments?
Does things ever come out of the floodplain?
There is actually quite a few that are coming out.
Okay.
It's kind of gotten, it was supposed to be early spring that we were supposed to hear, so it's kind of got moved back to fall. I'm not even gonna say early fall, that they're supposed to be making those announcements and stuff like that. But that is one of the properties that is on the list.
And that's why you want a 9-month?
Yep.
To cover that?
Yep,
Versus a 6.
yeah.
Makes
And Jerry is here from NeighborWorks, so if anyone had any questions regarding any of their things, because the next couple of items are going to be associated with NeighborWorks.
Okay.
I
I
move
don't,
to approve.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't see any reason after open meeting. There's motion by Kathy.
Second.
Second by Alder Scannell. Questions or comments in regard to the motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, thank you. Number 3, consideration of possible action to approve a development agreement for the purpose of building a single-family owner-occupied market-rate home on the vacant lot located at 421 Fort Street, parcel 2-181. Is that you?
Yep, that's me.
Rhonda?
Okay, this is for the 2022-23 Bridges Construction Program. We acquired the property back in 2015 using neighborhood enhancement funds for the purpose of developing single-family owner-occupied home. They are requesting this lot to be deeded to them at no cost. This would actually go into a development agreement. They're not asking for a planning option on this one. They are not asking for any additional funding at this point, and the home would be sold at market rate. I have attached the house plan that they have. They know that they will have to apply for a conditional use permit as well on there, and staff has recommended that we approve the development agreement for the 22-23 Bridges Construction Program.
And the design, I'm sure fits into the neighborhood, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
It does. It does.
Motion to approve.
Questions or comments? Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Debbie. Questions or comments in regard to the motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 You guys are making
Motion
this
carried.
very easy today. Oh, shh.
When it comes
Mine are. Neil has to go at the end.
Now you jinxed it, Rhonda.
Yeah. Alderman Scannell, you got a little voice to this group here. That's good.
His parking.
Right.
Oh, we don't have to worry about his parking.
Consideration of possible action to approve a 60-day planning option for development of a single-family owner-occupied affordable housing located at 1308 East Walnut, parcel 14-244.
This too is for the Bridges Construction Student Build Program for the 2022-23 school year. However, this time NeighborWorks is asking for a 60-day planning option. We purchased this property back in 2015 using federal funds. So they want to just make sure that they're in that, to create a plan that they can resell at the affordable rate. So they're just asking for a 60-day planning option to be able to create that. They are asking the lot to be donated to them, and they do not anticipate any additional funding at this time. Staff did review it, and we see no problem with them having a 60-day planning option to create their detailed cost analysis to complete the affordable housing.
It looks like the same design as the previous.
It is, yeah.
Which is fine.
Can't build a house like that. Oh, there we go.
They're far enough.
Yeah.
I think we should move to approve.
Kathy makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Matt. Questions or comments in regard to the motion?
Well, you using bridges on this one too, or?
Bridges on this one, so for the first time, we're doing 2 new builds every year, because the program's expanding, which is why we wanted to go with the same plan, because the students will be going back and forth
Sure.
between the sites, so thought ited be a little easier that way.
That makes
So,
sense.
These are high school.
It's a great program.
high school students, yep.
Very good.
That's so awesome, because I need more. Good, I understand that stuff. Builders.
Yeah, very constructive.
There's a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're rolling. Number 5, consideration of possible action to extend the planning option with NF Housing Partners LLC for 1100 block of East Walnut on May 31st, 2022. That's right, we approved the planning option, but now they're looking for, to extend it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Good afternoon.
Good.
So you're right. We granted them a 6-month planning option so that they could apply for tax credits through WIDA. So up to the point of publishing this, we didn't know and they didn't know, which is why we asked that we extend this to the end of the month. We got a voice message at 6:30 p.m. last night, an email this morning, notification that they actually did not receive the tax credits for the project. They missed, it was close, 1 point.
Oh,
They missed the cutoff by
I
1 point.
I can't believe how many, like literally 1 point.
Yeah, so this, naturally, we're still, like reacting from this and just finding out, and they just found out as well. They would like some time just to explore alternatives, and also just with how crazy, so to say, the market is right now with the cost of building. Who's to say there may not be a chance that a project awarded could fall through or may not be able to move
Sure.
forward, and that maybe that would open up a spot for them to receive tax credits that way. But we'd still support an extension to the end of the month, just to allow them time to explore if there are any alternatives to make this work. But yeah, it was really disappointing news. I don't know any other way to say it than just, yeah, disappointing, because this is the second
time.
developer, and good developer, you know, that we've had interested in this site and put forward an application and didn't get approved, and missed pretty close as well with that one, so.
So Debbie, how much influence do you still have at the state? Not much?
In fact, a lot of people that were in multifamily last year are no longer there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so.
So anyway, you still would like to do the extension? till like-
We would still be in support of extending the planning option to the end of this month,
Sure.
just to give them, you know, enough time to take a look if there are the other alternatives. And we don't have, I mean, staff would still need to, we haven't even discussed with the team yet, staff, on, you know, how we're going to proceed if they can't make this work. If we're looking at another RFP process, or if we want to look at alternatives to get development on the site, because I mean, there are interested developers out there. But it's just a matter of, you know, figuring out, determining what our next steps are with this property.
Neil, please.
Just along those lines, Mr. Chair, I want to point out, obviously, certainly the original request was for the end of the month. That's still an awful tight time frame for somebody to
Yes,
kind of reset
yes.
their capital stack.
Yes.
So certainly at the discretion of this body, if you would like to actually give them a little bit more time, we'll just make sure that is certainly within the purview of this body to do that.
Appreciate that, yeah.
How much more time do you think would be reasonable?
3 months would probably
3 months would-
I think would be inappropriate in this case.
End of July, or?
It'd be, I would say, end of July would be.
End of July.
I think, yeah.
Does it make more sense to just, let's go with the proposal as it is to the end of the month? That doesn't mean the firm buzzer hits, but I don't know if they're gonna say, hey, we want to walk away.
Well-
And I don't want to be locked up then until end of July.
So, full disclosure, MF Housing Partners expressed interest in applying again for the next round. And they think that, you know, there's a way that they could retool their application to get a couple extra points out of it the next round. But historically speaking, you know, this body has never, I can't recall a time where we granted, you know, another year-long, it'd be essentially another year-long planning option to allow them to apply for another round. So again, like I said, we as staff, we haven't together reacted to this yet to determine, you know, what we would like to support moving forward. But certainly to Director Schulte's point, you know, less than a month is a really tight turnaround to then explore alternatives. But they are willing to try to find a way, because they put their own money and resources into submitting an application, putting together plans, wanting to make this work.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we've
And
done work with
it
them.
costs a lot of money to put in a tax credit application. It really does. I think by granting an extension for 3 months, they could possibly look at 4% tax credits, not have to go through the round, you know. There might be other options that they can explore. But I don't think we're gonna have another developer jump on it that quick.
Neil, we're anticipating probably a special meeting being needed.
Most definitely, probably within the next week and a half.
Yeah, I mean,
For our last
it might
item.
make sense to Matt's point, just to move forward with the date that we have on the agenda, and then potentially revisit after staff has a chance
Sure.
to talk internally and potentially connect with the developer.
Absolutely.
Sure, we can always add on, extend it again. Sure. Matt, that's your motion?
Yeah, that would be my motion. To just, as is stated on here, to extend the planning option to May 31st, and we'll be reopened.
we'll come back in July and
Yeah.
Second.
we're doing it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to extend the planning option to May 31st, 2022. Questions or comments in regard to the motion from seconds? If not, all those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 6, consideration of possible action to approve a contract with Honeywell International to replace the RTU controllers at the KI Convention Center for $98,700.
So you probably are aware we've been dealing with these RTU controllers for a while.
Yes.
Staff at the Hyatt actually has to physically go on top of the building to control them on super hot days and super cold days, so it's been a real problem. But Trista's been working with me at Public Works, and we went out for bid. Actually, we didn't go out for bid, we did a separate contract with Honeywell because they're the only gig in town who understands these RTU controllers. So what we're doing is we're replacing 10 of them, and then we're also providing the system, the platform that goes along with it. So the RTU controllers are $65,000, the platform's about $33,700, I think. So our recommendation is to get these all replaced, so staff don't have to go up on the roof
Right.
to make the adjustments.
I see our maintenance fund's in good shape. They contribute to the maintenance fund on a monthly basis? Is that what you do?
They do, yeah.
Yeah, it's very good shape. Okay, questions or comments in regard to the request? We don't want them getting hurt up in the top of the road.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Scandal.
Second.
Second by Matt. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thanks. Number 7, consideration of possible action to purchase 720 Bodie Street, parcel 14-456 using TIDA? Is that how you pronounce that, Lisa?
Ta-da. Ta-da.
Not as good as give a damn.
For the purpose of developing single-family owner-occupied affordable housing. Who's got that?
That's me again.
Brenda.
Okay, this was recently posted as a Brown County tax deed foreclosure. It is zoned R1. In January of '21, a permit was issued to raise the building. Work was completed in May of 2021. Per Paul Zeller, we have the ability to purchase this property from the county for the amount of $13,124.92 plus the cost of recording. The county administration is still scheduled to discuss this sale further to see if there's any further interest with the county on May 12th. After that point, if we are given the go-ahead, staff is recommending that we purchase the 720 Doty Street using our TDA funds for the purpose of building a single-family owner-occupied affordable housing.
Strictly out of curiosity, what is the status of our TDA funds? In other words, our balance, if you will?
Well, we had allocated dollars for MF Partnership on their project, so depending how that goes, we had about $700,000. If that doesn't go through, I think we're back up to over $1 million.
Oh, wow. Okay. So- Okay, so we're gonna, after we buy it, we're gonna, I'm not quite sure.
It's a vacant lot right now.
Oh, it's just a vacant lot.
Right.
So-
Okay.
It's hard to see.
Yeah, we'll be marketing it for single-family owner-occupied, and we're using TDA funds, we'll request that it be marketed for affordable housing.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Alderman Norton, Scannell.
Second.
Second by Matt. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 8, consideration of possible action in developing agreement for financial assistance for the redevelopment project located at 216-222 Cherry Street.
Mr. Chairman, that's me.
Yes.
This item has been, this agreement was brought before this board previously. And there were a couple of minor updates to it, so at the discretion of the city attorney, we decided it would be important enough changes to bring them back to you one more time to make sure you are okay with that.
Yeah.
The key changes, again, identified right here in the staff report, officially adding 5 stories with 57 market rate apartment units. Replaced, it was originally adding at least 3 stories with the unit count, so they've just kind of refined that. More importantly, the project value is now at $13 million, up from $6 million. So obviously a nice step in the right direction on that one. And then
How dare they?
yeah, I know, actually making the project bigger. What am I gonna say?
Right.
We have and then the last item there was, I think there was some discussion about the incorporation of some affordable housing units into the project. The developer did meet with Cheryl and discuss some program options and didn't see a super easy path forward, but it certainly has remained open to including possible vouchers, some using of some vouchers on the project. But that has not been incorporated into the agreement, but that they have had that conversation, so. So those are the key changes, not the actual assistance percentage, and everything else remains the same, as well as the project timeline. So we're certainly available to answer any questions, and Mr. Nugent is here if anyone has any questions for him.
He also added a 3-bedroom, I noticed. So, that's really nice.
Still connecting to the Cherry Street ramp, I'm sure. And
sir.
as far as the foundation, because you're building on top of the first story, no issues with this design versus?
I would certainly defer to Mr. Nugent on that, but my understanding is that we were kind of waiting for his architectural study to get done to make
Right.
sure that that was actually possible. So that's why it went from at least 3 now. He's sure his architect has said, yes, they can definitely do 5 stories now at this
Wow.
point, so.
It's amazing.
Which is very exciting. So obviously, a lot of the other projects, certainly this body is reviewed as we talk about we're doing foundations and environmental work. And, well, we don't have to dig into the ground on this one. It's already there. So this is kind of a nice one to be, certainly be able to add to the existing structure, so.
From a curiosity perspective, how high was it originally before fire many years ago?
I believe, was it 4 stories on top of it? I believe it was 4 stories on top of the single story right now. So this is adding, actually taking it up 1 additional story, I believe.
Actually, I wouldn't mind opening up the meeting. I'd like to hear a little more about the analysis and the studies that have been completed.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Alderman Scannell, and Kathy, all those in favor, someone saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Please come forward. Tell us a little bit, please come forward. Come on.
Hey, everyone. Well, thanks. Is this a good spot?
If you can't know it, you're right.
Is this okay now? All right.
Yes.
Well, I'll answer any questions that you have. I will, the due diligence process, because of the uniqueness of the property, it took a little bit longer than what we originally intended. There was a lot of engineering work and architectural work that was done in the basement just to determine what the existing structure and footings can handle from a load standpoint.
Yes.
And that's how we end up at that rendering right there, as opposed to, we were thinking potentially 3 new stories, maybe 4, but we're happy to say that we're gonna get 5 stories out of this. But that additional work certainly took more time, and it was actually expensive too.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, impact to the Cherry Street ramp, obviously, more stories, more apartments?
Yeah, certainly to be, obviously, certainly just worked out, and specifically this will need to be worked out with the Department of Public Works to proceed and move that forward. But from a design standpoint, there's at least been a preliminary conversation on how the design would work. And actually, Director Grenier, when I first brought this up to him, he's like, oh yeah, it's going to work like this. They're going to put one side in, and they're going to lower it down. And he already worked through a large set of how the construction was actually going to go and the design work. So we're not anticipating any issues that way. And we do know that ramp does have capacity at this time. So right now, we're not anticipating any significant issues.
Okay.
And we also did get some feedback as well from City Hall to say, kind of let the residents pick themselves if they want to, have a lease, if they want to take a spot, if they don't need a spot, let them kind of directly coordinate with City Hall on that, which I think that's an option too.
Sure.
Looks like a nice addition to downtown.
I hope so. We're really excited about
Yeah,
it.
very attractive. Once we get the grocery store downtown and yell at, that's gonna be nice. Seriously, that's the biggest thing we hear about, is that people are looking forward to a grocery store downtown, as we get bring more and more people downtown. All right, questions or comments for the developer? Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Appreciate your time.
Motion to get back to regular business.
Motion to close the floor.
Second?
Motion to close the floor, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're back to regular business. Neil, you like the design?
Absolutely, no, I think it's good. I mean, certainly, it's a more modern design, but not over the top. I think it will actually fit in quite well with the area. I guess the one letter I did want to make a note of is, I think, staff originally recommended 70% on the TIF on this, but RDA recommended 80, so it is presented at 80. That is where it is at the agreement. So just to be clear that was remained at where it was, so. And we're comfortable with that because certainly the way the agreement is written, any improvements related to the development of connecting to the ramp is the cost of the developer.
Okay,
So,
good.
And we need to create a new TID for this project.
that is correct.
And will it literally be just that project?
We have, it's about a block and a half, I think, it's maybe 2 blocks that we're looking at in terms of, so it'll encompass a couple of other properties in the immediate area, but, so we are keeping it relatively small to be conservative, just to avoid any potential losses in value on the district. So we think by doing that, we always have the ability to enlarge it if another project comes along, so. We feel that's a good
we need to be
conservative approach.
concerned with there about creation of a TID and how long that takes.
I don't think so. I know our experience, certainly obviously with the Joint Review Board, and especially in a case like this, and I think by taking a more conservative approach and actually having some closures here in the last couple of years, I think that actually makes, we have a pretty good track record with our Joint Review Board, and we're confident that they'll be supportive of this project.
Is Deanna confident? Are you confident?
Yes.
That's important.
Didn't even see her hiding.
Oh, there she
is.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Kathy seconded.
This is just a really awesome improvement.
Absolutely,
Downtown.
absolutely.
Bigger's the cherry on the top.
Yeah.
Very good.
Only 1 month.
You're right, only one thing I
I get it, we're gonna get more than one fundraising. Any questions or comments to regard to the motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried, thank you. Good luck. Number 9, consideration of possible action on the term sheet with Impact 7 for the redevelopment of 420 South Broadway.
That is also me, Mr. Chairman. This is also known as the Badger Sheet Metal Site. Folks, just so everybody knows exactly which building we're referring to here. We have had this has been under planning option for, I'm trying to think exactly how much long. And how long we had this for 6 months? I can't remember exactly which.
Longer than that.
A little bit longer than that. At this point, that planning option is is actually set to expire, I believe, at the end of this month. So they are requesting, have actually requesting a preliminary term sheet, and that has been included in your packet for review and approval. At some point, obviously, if the terms are favorable for the RDA, we would proceed with preparing a full formal development agreement. Just some highlights. I think this is actually in your packet. So certainly looking at it's an existing TID district in 22, so nothing linked there. Rough project schedule was certainly getting in and getting completed by 24 months after starting, which would be, I think they wanted to get in the ground here possibly at the end of this year, first quarter of next year, according to their schedule. So that was kind of what they're shooting for. Overall construction cost is about $60 million. That's actually increased twice in our conversations with them over time. Because obviously it is including some affordable units. We don't know exactly how much that's going to translate into assessed value at this point, but that is something, once they finalize their design, we will be asking our assessing office to take a closer look at that. Right now, they at least have given the preliminary construction cost at $60 million. So it would be a pay-go model. We're looking at a 70% to the developer with 30% staying at the city. Duration of the TID payments would be through the expenditure period to 2042 in this district, which means we would have five years at the end of the district then to capture all of the increment for the district, solely going all to the city. I think they are looking at qualified expenditures. We'll certainly be dialing those in as they give us a detailed construction budget. So we're anticipating some of the usual things, any site work, any unusual enhanced architecture, similar things that we've used in the past for other projects. So with that, and certainly we're excited about that. This is also a mixed-use project. They've got a couple of commercial spaces that they're looking to continue as part of the project overall. So again, this is the model. This is simply their scaling model. This is not the architecture of the building. This is just their scaling model. But so we've been certainly the staff has been very excited with the progress that they have made and the communication that they have made to the point, certainly for especially the last 3 or 4 months. So we're very confident that they are going to be able to move this project forward. They are evaluating still final financing options in terms of any tax credits, other programs, certainly some of the city's housing programs as well. They did ask they are a nonprofit actually, and asked if the state a nonprofit, if that was going to be a problem as well. If you're asking for TIF assistance, that could be an issue. Even though they said they would be willing to discuss a pilot, they said they would probably at this point are proceeding with trying to create it as a taxable project.
Okay.
So.
Yes. Yeah, if we're gonna do a pay-go, I would need to be a taxable project.
Yeah, exactly. So otherwise it'd be a very small increment check going out, that's for sure. So with that, certainly available to answer any questions regarding this, so.
This is the first development agreement we're doing in Shipyard? It is, isn't it?
We have merge is with, actually, we actually have that one, and that one is in place. That one actually has been in
Right.
place there, yes. So this will be our second one, kind of in this TIF district specifically, so we're anticipating that one being, the first one being around, I think that was merged is around 21 million. This is about 22 million. To be conservative, at a $60 million construction cost. Conservatively, we're assuming the same value for both projects. So it'll be about a $45 million increment for this TIF if everything goes according to schedule.
I don't see any problem with the request, 70% to the line, okay, goes,
Yep.
is what we like.
And obviously, this is just simply the term sheet.
Yeah.
This would just direct staff essentially to prepare a formal agreement to bring back to this body.
Right.
Sounds good to me, don't it? I approve.
Okay, Alderman Scannell. We're gonna have an active, we had an active Alderman before, no, I'm not gonna get her on, but actually Alderman Scannell is definitely be very active, which is great.
I will second that motion.
All right, a motion and a second in regards to the motion of the term sheet. Questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, number 10, consideration of possible action on amendment to development agreement 18-02 between the City of Green Bay and the Green Bay Redevelopment Authority regarding improvements to the shipyard. Good.
Okay, that is also me, Mr. Chair. I'm going
Yep.
to hand these out, if I could, please. Some casual reading. Apologize for not getting these to you in the packet a little earlier, but we've been kind of working on some financing numbers here for this overall project here. Up till even this morning, we're working on some of these. So essentially what this is doing, if folks remember, certainly folks who've been on the RDA for a while, the development agreement between the RDA and the city essentially to actually establish the borrowing limit and budget for the phase one, and actually the entire project was about $10 million was established originally in that first original agreement. Since then, that was 2018 when that was done, this project has changed 3 times. At least if that folks remember right, there was certainly the original Bullfrog Stadium, then they went to had the soccer field on one, and then it was Breakthrough. Now we're obviously on Merge, it's kind of the key anchor tenant, for private sector tenant on this project. So almost all those 3 iterations, this agreement between the city and RDA was never updated. So one of the things we felt it was important to do was try to bring this forward and get that current, certainly to reflect the current project as we go, not only for the private sector project, but also for the actual improvements that are going to be made that the city's working on. So in the staff report, we did try to kind of identify what those costs have been to date. Originally, the original agreement anticipated $10 million in costs with a $500,000 grant from the stadium district tax, I believe is what it was. So number one, that project is probably not, at least not readily available, $500,000. So we're at the $9.5 million. This is kind of our working number that was going to be allocated from the city. Essentially through TID 22 is the primary source for that. So, but today we have, the city has borrowed $7.5 million out of the authorized $9.5 million. Is what's been in the account, and approximately about $3.5 million has been spent in those 3 key areas of work. Has been land acquisition, including the Badger sheet metal site was the main one on those. Site engineering, which obviously remembers all the work and the change order discussed with Stantec here this past year, and then the full site grading for the entire site in front of the shipyard. So it was about $1.1 million. So there's about $4 million remaining from that original borrowing that is sitting there and available. So we have $4 million available plus the additional 2 that we are pre-authorized to borrow. So we have $6 million available. As we've kind of come through, we're getting ready to kind of review and consider awarding the bids for phase 1 improvements. That cost is just under $8 million for those improvements right now. So obviously we're in need of getting approval for the remaining borrowing for the last $2 million to make that happen. So staff is certainly, obviously, is in reviewing the options and considering everything we've gone through here. Several reasons why we're in support of pursuing that. One, we are contractually obligated, certainly in our merge development agreement, to complete these improvements. So that's a pretty large motivator to get those things done. Second of all, the borrowing is planned to be funded through TID funding, not necessarily an impact on the general fund. So it would be a tax increment district funded borrowing. So I think the overall assessed valuation for this area, obviously we mentioned in the previous report, is dramatically increased. I think the original Numbers being considered were closer to $8 million back in the original project. Now we're closer to $43 million. We hope that's very conservative, and it's actually considerably more than that. But we're obviously seeing a considerably more increment in the ground than we were anticipated originally in the very first agreement. Plus, to date, much to the efforts of Mr. Buchanan here and from our staff, the city's actually received more than $1.8 million in grant funding as well towards various improvements on this project, which we are very excited about, and obviously are certainly continuing to pursue opportunities, but certainly that has certainly made a nice impact on the overall project cost of that. So with that, so the phase one improvements are kind of have been described in the actual document has been handed out to you as the First Amendment document is the key one. Certainly want you guys to take a look at. Essentially wanted to update the recitals and the project description to reflect kind of what has been described in the staff report. The one thing I would make a note on in terms of the staff report, to update that, it was at $2 million. We actually would want to put that at about $2.65 million to include right now the option of including the reconstruction of Art Street, which we may or may not have to do, and also including some budget for construction inspection for the engineering work actually being done in phase one, which was not included in the original estimate. So the staff report recommends $2 million. We would actually be asking for borrowing up to $2.65 million to cover that cost.
This is additional to what we originally thought it was.
Correct. So within the actual authorizations that were done in that original agreement. So we have the three allocations. There's an existing balance. We have pre-approved for existing balance of $4 million, pre-approved to borrow an additional $2 million, and then this would actually be authorizing the last 2.65, and will cover all of the phase one costs. There are some reasons that we may be able to come back in and make that not have to borrow that entire amount, which I'm sure would make Director Ellenbecker and folks in the council much happier. But at this point, we want to make sure we're incorporating those costs in the event that we need to cover those. So there is a time constraint on this one. We are looking at, we have an active bid out there for the phase one improvements. Those need to be awarded by June 10th. So obviously getting information out and getting an approval from the RDA and then taking that to council and then coming back to RDA actually for an authorization then to let that bid. That's kind of where we're at.
Can you help me understand the grant money? Where did that come in, the $1.8 million?
The $1.8 million has been applied to various projects in phase one. So we have actually applied for those. Matt, if you have any specific questions on those, certainly Mr. Buchanan can ask about the specific grant programs. Those actually, I think we did highlight them actually in the updated revisions. I'm trying to find exactly other grants. So the bottom of the third page, section P, section financing, other grants, EPA brownfield cleanup grants, $500,000, WDC brownfield grants, $1 million, NRDA grants, $304,000, and an EPA GLRI grant at $565,000.
And did you say that the money's already spent, the grant money?
So those funds have been applied to the project at this point, yes.
Where were the other two? We see the section P.
500 and a million.
Yep, the third page here, it's section P of the new programs.
Yeah.
So P2, other grants.
Only the odd pages.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Oh, and that's in the, that's for the, it didn't copy for some reason. Okay, well, I apologize for that. This is why they don't let me operate the copy machine apparently. So yeah, so they are listed. I'll have to go get that section back out to you. So that has been, yeah, those are, so the EPA cleanup grants, WDC brownfields grants, NRDA grants, and the EPA grants. So we can send that over to Dave. We can actually fire that up. I will email that to Mr. Buck so we can actually put that up on the screen here. Hold on.
So a lot of those, actually all of those grants are reimbursable, so we need to borrow funds first, incur those costs, and then we get those reimbursed.
Okay.
But through the grant. We spent about $1 million of those grants so far on the psych rating. We'll be applying the rest of them to complete these phase one construction improvements, stormwater improvements, additional hard surface capping for remediation.
All right, Neil, just to make it clear.
Just hit shut off track changes. There we go. Oops, no, and no markup. There you go. So the specific grants were, there we go, other grants, keep going. So, yeah, switch it to no markup, Dave, not original.
Neil, as a quick recap, okay, so the $10 million was approved by the RDA and City Council.
Correct.
And we spent how much of that?
We have spent,
Do you want me to make copies of this, Neil, or do you want to just work off of this for everyone?
That's fine, that's fine.
yeah,
Are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
so we've actually expended about 4 million.
Okay,
Well, I take it 3.5 million has been spent, and that's been primarily on land acquisition, site grading, and design engineering. The three major categories for that. So that leaves us an original $4 million of available balance of what was originally approved for debt.
I guess I'm confused. We approved $10 million, you said we spent $3.5 million, but we have 4 left?
We've been approved, City Council approved borrowing of up to 9.5 million.
Okay,
We have actually borrowed 7.5 million to date.
okay,
So we have $2 million we can still access that's already been approved.
got it.
Then we have actually, out of that money, we had the 7.5 that we've borrowed, we have spent 3.5 million towards those three categories that I just mentioned.
Okay,
So that leaves us an available balance then of $4 million
Right.
in that pool of funds. So those two together, we have $6 million available
Got
to
it.
apply towards the project.
I understand that. Okay. And, okay.
So we do consider, staff does consider this really as a great opportunity. Certainly always, the additional fund of borrowing is always a little bit, always sort of be careful, but certainly the progress that has been experienced by the project, and certainly with Impact 7 moving along as fast as it has been, in addition to, certainly Verge moving forward, we do see this as an opportunity to really capitalize and keep the value of this project significantly higher than what we thought it was going to be.
Right.
And
That's
just
very-
trying to track the funds here, $4 million has been borrowed, sitting in a bank account.
Yes, sir.
We have $2 million of additional loan capacity that's already approved. That
Yes, sir.
gets us to $6 million.
Correct.
We need 7.8.
So that's for the actual, for the phase 1 engineering, and then the items in this agreement. So that was 7.8 million, and then we were also looking for, the two items I added on here was $450,000 for the art street improvements, which we need to do in terms of our merge development agreement. That may end up being something we actually end up just doing as a general fund, a CIP project, depending on our discussions with the Director of Public Works. But we need to make sure and have that capacity just in case. And then the other item that was not included in the original phase 1 was actually construction inspection budget for actual staff to be out there on site as they're actually doing the project, having an engineer actually out there to make sure the big project, that was $200,000.
200,000.
So with all the phase 1 improvements and that additional add-ons, that's another 700,000, that gets us to 8.5, correct? And we've got capacity today for 6, and so are you saying we borrow another 2.5?
That was what we're requesting, yes, sir.
And then after we do all that, then we can redeem and get those grants of 1.5.
That is
Is that
correct.
correct?
It's just over 1.8.
1.8, okay.
So none of those have been reimbursed at this point with phase 1 costs or anything?
No, nope.
But they all been approved. Yeah.
Those are all secured grants that have been
Correct.
approved, yes. Mhm.
Yeah, these have all been those have been awarded, so.
And then on the merge project, where is that at from a, when will it start?
We are currently, right now, the current agreement says they're looking to start this fall. They did come in for an extension. I think that was actually something the RDA approved here a couple months ago.
Right.
We are working through them some soil condition issues with them right now. So we're anticipating reality probably starting sometime in early next year. We believe it's probably when the actual start date's going to be. So right now it's a contamination issue in terms of trying to figure out structurally how to put the foundation of the building in. And what they were proposing could have caused problems with the environmental cap that's already on the site. Imagine a giant squeegee, putting a bunch of weight on it and pushing the contamination down into the groundwater. So we don't want that to happen, and that was certainly the geotech folks from both the developer and from the city are working through an alternative to try to figure out the best way to address that. So
And our agreement with them is a pay-go as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's correct. And we do have some costs up front, project grant on that one already as part of, obviously acquiring the site and so forth. So there are some upfront funds that have already been invested, that we would like, a part of the agreement is repaying those funds in addition as part of that pay-go going forward.
Okay, and so the risk for the city is we kick off phase one and merge doesn't go forward, correct?
Correct. Oh, and Impact 7, I would throw both of those projects in there. So
Okay.
both did 22, but in this economy, certainly a fair scenario to bring up.
And is there a reason for us to kick off the phase one before something there is more secure?
Our development agreement with Merge requires those phase one improvements to be put in as part of the project. So the timing of.
Put in before they start?
Correct. So the timings are specifically defined in the agreement that those things need to be in there.
So it's not a total pay-go then? There are some upfront investments?
Well, we have, for public improvement costs, absolutely, right. So from an infrastructure standpoint, this
And
includes.
that's what this body approved in 2018.
Yep.
Was the 9.5 million. So there was already that
Right.
upfront
Correct.
investment that was authorized.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is probably, I would say, it is the reason that Merge has selected and is interested, and Impact 7 is interested in this site because of those amenities that are being
And the
put in for the waterfront.
And the 9.5 million was authorized without any development guarantee, right, at that point. There was no
Right.
signed development agreement.
That's true.
Breakthrough never signed the development
Right.
agreement,
No.
and that was, as Neil said, $8 million. And so now you're looking at a conservative estimate of ballpark of 43 million
Absolutely.
in comparison to
Absolutely.
8 million. So it's a, fivefold plus increase in the dollar value created here.
And the initial investment was all part of, in order to make shipyard go, we had to make that investment, and we knew that.
Correct.
That's right.
And I would also put it in, but certainly to Matt's question, I think they also, in terms of if doomsday scenario, both projects fall, don't move forward. We have had contacts from at least 2 other developers interested in the Impact 7, in the Badger Sheet Metal site. And I think nobody's really inquired about the Merge site because they're assuming it's under contract and being built.
Right.
However, I would imagine that there would be interest in that. If we actually ended up going out and marketing it, we've had enough contacts regarding those 2 sites that I think someone would be fairly interested in
That's our
doing
next
it.
exciting area.
Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to make sure Merge and Impact 7 keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
That's obviously, we've already got investments into those 2 projects, and we'd like to see them continue. They're
Absolutely.
certainly our preference. And right at this point, we certainly will, other than dealing with some of the things Matt and I were discussing before the meeting in terms of just general material shortages, labor thing that every developer is dealing with really right now. As long as we can mitigate that and help them manage that, we feel that both projects will move forward, so.
I followed you with all the numbers, except in the beginning, you said something about, we're gonna go for 2.65 million instead of 2 million.
That was, the $2 million was to get us to the $8 million, I think that Matt was referring to for just the overall phase 1.
Okay.
When we went back and looked at it, the 2 things that were missing from that is the $465,000, or $450,000 for the construction of Art Street, and then $200,000 for the construction inspection that would be required to actually oversee the project.
I follow it, thank you.
Right, and that went through the TW agreement? I mean, that was part of that, correct, that we developed Art Street?
Correct,
Yep.
correct,
Okay.
absolutely,
That makes
yes.
sense.
Very
And we have, again, this is an up to, if we find some other ways of funding that, we could certainly be a little less than that and do something with that. So we certainly, but this is to make sure we have the funds to actually, the important thing obviously for right now is awarding that phase 1 bid. So we know we don't have to, if we go past that June 10th deadline, we have to rebid, which actually would certainly not only delay the project, but very likely would come in at a higher cost.
Were there several bidders then?
We actually had, I believe that we had 7 or 8 bids come in, and actually they certainly they were a little high, but not nearly as high as we were fearing they would be, so. So we feel it is very important to certainly want to get this bid
Yes,
forward.
that's encouraging.
Yeah, and Neil, my questions weren't at all about whether or not we should do the project. It's
Absolutely.
completely about, is there a way for us to mitigate some risk?
Absolutely.
And it was, so it's more of a timing question, that should we or should we not? But if we are, right, contractually agreed with Merge, right, that we are doing these improvements before they need to break ground, then yeah, I'll be fully in support.
Is that a motion?
That can be a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
basically,
Now this is-
the motion is to amendment to the development agreement 18-02 between the city and the Redevelopment Authority regarding improvements to shipyard.
Just to be clear, please make sure that is the 2.65. I mean, it's both, the staff report had the $2 million.
Right. It's authorizing additional borrowing of up to 2.65 million.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Very good. Alderman Scannell is still making a second on?
I did.
Okay. Questions or comments in regard to the motion or second?
So when will we start?
The phase one improvements, if the bid is awarded on June 10th, I think the contractor will be out there prior to before end of June, and we'll actually be working. They are chomping at the bit to get going, so.
Then we'll see some real progress.
Yeah, people will be excited to see some dirt moving out there
Absolutely.
this June. so.
And those improvements should take how long, do you think, Matt?
Hopefully substantially completed by the end of this year. There'll be some landscaping, some final touches will go in next spring.
Oh, well, very good.
And then I don't know if it's appropriate, but it's on their website, so we might be able to break some news, Matt, if you want to let the RDA know.
Sure, so
He's like, I'm not gonna do it.
No, he deserves the credit, so.
Absolutely.
Thanks. National Park Service has preliminarily awarded us a $5 million grant to construct phase 2 of the shipyard.
Wow.
Because it's now a national park.
Maybe not quite that far, but it's a very
Looking
good
for
park.
rangers.
Yeah, right. Sure.
Dock hands?
That's awesome.
That is, congratulations.
You'll have to explain that one someday, how the national park is.
You're right.
Right now, I don't want to.
Any other questions or comments in regard to the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, informational. I had no questions in regard to the financial report or check register. Nothing else did. Director's report, Neil. Please.
So I did mention this in terms of having the project report that we're kind of working on in terms of format. So we have a few final things that we're still adding to this, so it wasn't ready for prime time, but here it is. This is kind of the format we're looking at doing. So Kathy, I know you certainly have had interest in this for sure. So we're looking at doing kind of just the address, project developer name, project description. It's kind of a permanent information on the list. So that also will always remind everybody of like how many apartment units it is, what sort of mixed use it sort of might be. And then we'll actually have a status update on the right-hand side for folks that we will update on a regular basis.
What about tax-based impact?
Yeah, we have, usually in most cases, we have a description of either a construction cost or an assessment, so, revised down to $21 million. So we do include that in the key description of the project, so.
And do you put, it's in there the date that it came to the RDA and that it was approved?
And right now, that is not in there. We can certainly go back and put that in there.
That's a big thing for me, because we've been a lot of developments we've approved, and it's like, I want to know, when did we approve it? When do we think shovels were going to go in?
Yeah.
And since they haven't, when do we think they're going to
Yeah,
go in?
no, that's an easy thing to go back and add. So we can pull those right out of the agreement. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that, we're concerned about, is as these are going through, we've had stops and starts, so.
Absolutely.
In the status, as long as we continue to keep the status in there so we can see it historically.
Certainly, easy enough.
How about another thing, you keep bringing these up, the city commitment. In other words, what are we bringing to the table for this project? In other words, the tax base is $10 million, but what are we doing?
Yeah, right now, we've noted whether, if there is a TIF development agreement in place, we've made a note of that. We didn't put the exact nature down on that, since it's gonna have some, certainly, so while that is public record, making it too easy for folks to come in and get a steal from somebody else. So we certainly, and again, certainly the idea is, and I think Gary mentioned this to you earlier, obviously the intention is to have this list on there and available to you guys, so if there is a specific, at least, at the very least, if you guys want to ask a question, it's like, hey, we haven't heard about this one for a while, what's going on? So we at least have that description there to remind everybody that, hey, it is out there, and so if we have that date, if something hasn't moved forward in a while, hopefully that would trigger certainly something, a member has a specific question on an update on that, that it provides that ability to do
Absolutely.
that. And we'll be actually,
excited about this.
and we'll actually be using this, this is actually going to go to you guys, to RDA, EDA, Plan Commission, will probably be all part of the director's report. This will be a report that actually goes to all three
Good.
bodies, so.
So what is, I just gotta ask about the grocery store.
We had, actually,
Shoveling
interestingly
work?
enough, I guess, I'll hop down on this one. The, certainly, we had the bad news about MF Partners not receiving tax credits on that, but the gentleman who's actually developing, same developer affiliated with that project, did receive tax credits for 216 Military Avenue. So that one was awarded, so we're hoping that gets them focused on that one, and then back onto this one here. Matt has been working with the developer on kind of completing the environmental review and mitigation plan for that site. They have found, there was some petroleum in addition to, what else they found on there. Did some additional testing here this last week. So they had to kind of step up their mitigation, a little bit effort on that, but right now, they are still according to the last conversation we've had with the developer, they're still planning on proceeding and being hopefully in the ground by August. So despite some construction cost challenges and some additional environmental challenges, they seem to not be overly, we're concerned at this point, and are still planning on moving ahead. So we'd like to see that project be underway in August. There is some financial gap they're wrestling with. I think we're looking at some creative options in terms of helping out specifically with the grocery store component as a minority-owned business, as a woman-owned business. So we think there's some opportunities there that we might be able to provide a little bit more assistance to make sure that happens. So, knock on wood, so far, all still positive news at this point.
In your list, how many projects are there? I can rattle off.
Oh, jeez, how many, I think we got, how many, 7 pages worth.
Oh, good.
So, yeah,
Very
so
good.
we've got, there's quite a few of them out there.
Excellent.
So, yeah, we got to working on some of the other housing projects that we're starting getting those identified on there. But yeah, key redevelopment projects, major industrial projects, and then other housing projects, I think are the kind of 3
Very
key
good.
categories that we've got in there right now.
And if you have formatting or detail, suggestions, feel free.
Yeah,
Volunteering
absolutely.
to have Neil receive those, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Honestly, for the RDA, feel free to just.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, like I said, that's an easy thing that Kathy's required, that's an easy thing to go back and pull. Absolutely easy enough to pull in there, absolutely.
As useful it is for us, I'm sure it's gonna be very useful for you guys as well, to keep track of all these.
Yeah,
things.
it's amazing how many times we've been, oh,
Okay, help me.
geez, oh, yeah.
Any reds on the schedule?
We had, there were a couple of oranges,
No,
a couple of oranges on delays that we're dealing with right now that are.
I'm supposed to be red, green, and yellow.
Yeah, so we did color code them a little bit for delays, or the oranges, the greens are on schedule, and then, yeah, no reds, thank goodness. So hopefully that stays that way, so.
You guys are doing a dynamite job. It's
So
exciting.
hopefully we get this email out here, even the end of this week, so you'll actually be able to review it and have any questions for me at that point.
Fantastic.
So-
Very nice. Very good.
So just want to at least show you that, so you know that it is, we are working on it, so. So. Any other questions?
No. Any questions for staff or the mayor or anybody else? Good. Well, very good.
Thank you.
Great work. Welcome.
Thanks.
You're gonna be a dynamite
Good to be
member.
here.
I can see you're gonna be a dynamite member.
It keeps us moving at council, so. I think-
Yeah, right.
We'll do it here too.
Yeah, you got great first too, by the way, at the council. All right. Okay, our next meeting is June 14th, which I should be in Canada fishing, so.
I will not be
Matt,
either.
everybody-
We may have, like, so we probably will be reaching out for a special meeting here possibly in the next
Okay.
week and a half.
Fine.
Specifically related to the award of the phase 1 bids. That we
Sure.
mentioned that we just approved it. So this is gonna, I'll go to council on 17th, and then we'll probably be reaching out into this week, so we can check your schedules for after the meeting next week, so.
And if it need be, we can do a Zoom meeting, if that means that's the only way we can get a quorum, whatever. Although I like this face-to-face meetings, but better.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, you can't come back unless you bring us some fish.
Probably, I hope so.
That's the idea, right, Gary?
Yeah, I'm taking 2 grandsons, so it should be interesting, we should have a lot of fun.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Matt, all those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Excellent job, everyone. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. It is going to be fun. Thank you.
Yeah, the room still looks